Welcome back to the Cap Report. It's the week of the NFL draft, so we're going to get a couple mock drafts out this week. I wanted to get to this kind of content a little bit earlier, but I wasn't able to with work and all that kind of stuff, but it is what it is. I got a friend who's a Falcons fan. I told him, I'd make a Falcons 7-round mock draft, and, why not make it into a video? So here we are. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the Falcons are a cool team to do a mock draft with. I think that they've got a lot of holes, a lot of needs to fill, so you've got a lot of options for who and where to draft. They've got 2 top 50 picks, but 3 in the top 60, so they've got some interesting picks to work with as well. They're a rebuilding team, basically, even though they haven't necessarily said it themselves. Their cap situation is just absolutely atrocious. They have $62 million in dead cap. They owe $40 million to Matt Ryan, $15 million to Julio Jones, $4 million to Dante Fowler. And they have Calvin Ridley suspended for next season. So they don't have a lot of money to work with either. And it's notable in their signings, actually. Almost every free agent signing they had was a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. Looking at it, Mariota signed for 2 years. Lorenzo Carter, 1 year. Casey Hayward, 2 years. Damian Williams, 1 year. Eric Harris, 1 year. Tease Taylor, 1 year. Elijah Wilkinson, 1 year. These guys are all 1 year to 2 year signings. The only outlier here being their kicker, Young Hoko, signed for 5 years. But, it makes sense. This is a guy you got to lock down. A kicker's not going to cost you that much money anyway. So, I think it's really interesting. They're able to get Badero Patterson back. That was a big re-signing for them. Other notable players they have, Kyle Pitts is going to be probably the cornerstone right now for that team. They've got Jake Matthews at tackle, AJ Terrell at corner, Grady Jarrett at defensive tackle, but they're having issues in terms of re-signing him, and he's only got a year left as well. Yeah, that's just a quick look over at this team. They lost Russell Gage, Hayden Hurst, and Dante Fowler, so receiver, tight end, and edge, to free agency. And then, the draft philosophy, from what I could find for this team, they're a best player available type of team. They don't want to reach for needs. As I said, the team's essentially in a rebuild. I'm not going to lie, I forgot to screenshot the draft as it played out. I did write down the initial picks, so I'm just going to read them off, and I'll put a little graphic up for them. And the first pick, the Jaguars took tackle Evan Neal. And the second pick, Detroit took edge Aiden Hutchinson. Third pick, Houston took corner Sauce Gardner. The fourth pick, the Jets took safety Kyle Hamilton. With the fifth pick, the Giants took tackle Ikem Ekwonu. The sixth pick, Carolina took quarterback Malik Willis. And with the seventh pick, the Giants took edge Trayvon Walker. So at pick 8, the Falcons have a lot of options. This is probably a trade down spot, but this isn't a draft where a lot of people want to move up, so I doubt they're going to have options to move down. The only chance is maybe, a team trying to maybe jump Seattle for Charles Cross here. I think for the Falcons, it depends on the board falls. Sauce Gardner falls here. They'd take him. There's nothing to be mad about with these options here. Right now available, we have edge Kayvon Thibodeaux, tackle Charles Cross, edge Jermaine Johnson, receiver Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and corner Derek Stingley. For me, the pick's going to be edge Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon. He fits the scheme, and he's arguably a top 3 to 5 talent in the draft. He's going to fall, perceived that he's going to fall for concerns of, character concerns and concerns about his interest in football. It's a lot similar to Micah Parsons last year, but I'd like to say, just look at how Parsons panned out. He did great. He took the league by storm a little bit, and I don't think people expected him to be as effective and as good as he was. And all I was going to say is that odds are there's a team that's going to get a steal. They're going to get a really talented player later on. I don't think that Thibodeaux should fall as badly as Parsons did last year. I guess Parsons fell to 12 was it? Something like that. So it's not like he fell that much, but I don't think Thibodeaux should be around at all by then. If Thibodeaux makes out of top 10, I'd be surprised. He really should make it out of the top 5, but we'll see how things play out. At 8, this is a great pick for the Falcons. They found, a number 2 edge guy in Lorenzo Carter, but he's already proved, being a Giants fan, I kind of know this too. When he was in New York, he never was able to really be that number 1 guy. So this Thibodeaux gives you a number 1 edge rusher to pair with Lorenzo Carter, and as I say, he fits the scheme. He'll be fine in a 3-4. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say. You get a really good talent at a pick where you didn't expect him to get him. Now moving on, we go to their second round pick, which is pick 43. At this point, the options I'm looking for, maybe a receiver, a defensive tackle, corner, maybe interior line. Those are, what I'm kind of looking at. The guys we have available around this option: defensive tackle Perion Winfrey, linebacker Nakobe Dean, linebacker Quay Walker, running back Breece Hall, interior line Tyler Smith, linebacker Christian Harris, running back Kenneth Walker, quarterback Sam Howell, defensive tackle to Marvin Lill, safety Jalen Petrie. So there's multiple defensive tackle and linebacker options available here. Instead, I'm going to look for a true number 1 receiver. I think Ridley only has 1 year left on his deal, so even after he comes back from suspension, the team will have a number 1 guy locked down whether or not Ridley stays with the team. With that being said, the pick's going to be wide receiver George Pickens out of Georgia. Pickens is a first round value in my opinion. I don't believe he'll be available the next time we pick. The Falcons' next pick in the second round is at 58. I don't think he'll be available at that point, so I'm picking him now. As I said, there's a lot of defensive tackle and linebacker options available, so I'm assuming that there's actually three or four names I want, and I'm pretty sure at least one of them will be there at 58. I'm more confident one of those 3 or 4 will be there than I am that Pickens will be there. Honestly, I don't even know if Pickens lasts this far in the actual draft. It's hard to say. This draft has probably 50 guys that could go in the first round. I think he's a true number 1. I think he'd be valued a lot higher if not for all the injuries he's had, and maybe that's something to consider is injury concerns. Was it 2 torn ACLs? Maybe it's not that, but he had a big injury, I want to say last year and the year before that, so he didn't get to play a ton towards the end of his career. Moving on to the Falcons' second round pick, round 2 pick 58. At this pick, I'm looking for D tackle, linebacker again, maybe quarterback, corner, offensive line. There's options here for the Falcons, right? As we said, they can pick really whatever's available, best available. And so the options available here, we've got running back Kenneth Walker still, quarterback Sam Howell, defensive tackle Travis Jones, running back Isaiah Spiller, linebacker Chad Muma, edge Cameron Thomas, tight end Trey McBride, interior line Dylan Parham, linebacker Leo Chanel. From the last pick, I was looking for a D tackle or a linebacker, and actually the D tackle, the one I specifically wanted, is available. There's maybe a few other tempting options here, but the pick's going to be defensive tackle Travis Jones out of UConn. The Falcons starting defensive tackle Grady Jarrett only has 1 year left on his contract, and the players seem to be a bit of an impasse over the contract talk. I feel like an agreement's probably not going to be met. This gives Jones time to develop for a year and get rotational reps before taking on a starting role in the offense, and it's really just setting the team up moving forward. I'm assuming that they can't reach any agreement with Grady Jarrett. Plus, once again, this is a guy who could go in the first round. He probably won't, but he's a first round talent as well. Now we move on to the third round. The Falcons pick twice in this round as well, so it's good, to keep building this roster. We start at pick 74 in the third round. At this pick, I'm looking at probably linebacker, but there's an outside shot at offensive line, corner, or safety, depending on who's available here. Looking at the best options available, we have tight end Trey McBride, linebacker Leo Chanel, quarterback Carson Strong, linebacker Brian Asamoah, linebacker Darian Beavers, edge Kingsley Enagbero. I don't think I said that one right. Edge Drake Jackson, edge Nick Bonito, linebacker Troy Anderson, and linebacker Channing Tindall. So there's a lot of intriguing options here. I'm going to cut it down to the linebackers, Chanel, Asamoah, and Troy Anderson. Those are the ones I'm stuck between. And ultimately, I'm going to go with Troy Anderson, a linebacker out of Montana State. Just from a pure prospect perspective, there's so much potential here. He has less linebacker experience than all the other guys and isn't as far behind of him as you would think he'd be. He was actually used as like a Taysom Hill kind of guy in college on the offense. And then in his last year, I want to say, his last year or two, I think it was 2020, the really short year that he got converted to linebacker. But he's just, from an athletic prospect, it's insane. He tested with a 9.9 RAS, which only 4 or 5 linebackers have had a better test than in its time since 1987. And basically what that is, RAS is a relative athletic score. It considers the player's size and then their testing numbers for like the 40-yard dash, cone drill, all that kind of stuff. So from a athletic standpoint, there's only 4 or 5 linebackers that have tested better than him entering the draft since 1987. And he's a guy, because of that lack of experience from college, he's going to need to go to the right place, right? He's not going to go somewhere where he can start right away. He's the guy who's going to need some time to, develop. And then, maybe he, plays a role in special teams early on in his career as well. And the Falcons can afford to provide that. They don't have a great linebacking crew, but they can probably rotate him in, slowly and develop him over time. I think that, if you give him time to develop, he can has the potential to develop into a 3-down linebacker. And once again, we're looking at the Falcons timeline, right? They have a ton of guys on 1 to 2 year deals. They're not expecting to be competitive, I don't think, for another year or two. As long as they're stuck under all this dead cap, they're just going to be building through the draft. They're not even looking to be probably competitive this year. I don't want to say they're going to tank, but they might take a little bit to try and get one of the quarterbacks next year. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll still take a quarterback in this draft, but I don't think so. The way I'd build this team is build the team and then get the quarterback next year. Build the team for the quarterback. And once again, that this works with that timeline too. You're getting a draft pick who is not going to necessarily make an instant impact, but you're betting on down the line. Moving on to our second pick in the third round at pick 82. This pick I'm looking for a corner, offensive lineman, maybe a tight end, safety, or linebacker, even though we just picked one. The best options available here are quarterback Carson Strong, linebacker Brian Asamoah, edge Nick Bonito, linebacker Channing Tindall, tight end Cade Otton, tight end Jeremy Ruckert, tight end Greg Dulcich, defensive tackle Fedarian Mathis, Abraham Lucas, which is an offensive tackle, and corner Marcus Jones. I had been thinking about taking tight end Trey McBride at this pick, but he went literally the pick before this. So now I'm looking at Asamoah, Cade Otton, and Marcus Jones. The linebacker room doesn't have much going for it, and so even though I just picked at linebacker, it does make me want to double dip in back-to-back picks. I'm going to hold off for now, though. Marcus Jones is also an intriguing option as a slot corner, but there's a little concern with the size, so ultimately this pick is going to be tight end Cade Otton out of Washington. I know they picked Kyle Pitts last year, but their new coach Arthur Smith likes 2 tight end personnel, uses a lot of that. So despite drafting Kyle Pitts last year, drafting him so high, I do see them drafting another tight end, especially after it didn't work out with Hayden Hurst last year and they let him leave. I know they did sign Anthony Firsker as well, but they have a lot of picks, so I think they can afford to make this pick. Otton's probably one of the more versatile of the tight ends in this draft. He's got solid blocking and receiving skills, which will likely to be necessary in the scheme, and then also it allows you to do more with Kyle Pitts. I think if they got a guy who's only able to block or only able to run routes and catch, it's going to limit what you can do with Pitts. Having a guy who's versatile from a scheme perspective will give them more looks and maybe keeps teams from keying in on Pitts a little more. Moving on to round 4, we have the Falcons pick at 114. At this pick, I'm probably looking for a corner, safety, or offensive lineman. The options available here are offensive tackle Rasheed Walker, edge Tyreek Smith, linebacker Jesse Luketa, wide receiver Wandale Robinson, edge Myjai Sanders, linebacker Brandon Smith, edge Michael Clemens, edge D'Angelo Malone, offensive tackle Zach Tom, running back Kyron Williams, defensive tackle Matthew Butler, and edge Dominique Robinson. At first for this pick, I was a little unsure of what I was looking for. Once again, a guy I was interested in went in the pick directly before me. In this case, it was Zion McCollum, corner. Looking through what was available, nothing really stood out to me until I saw Zach Tom's name kind of scream out to me. So at this pick, we're going to go with offensive tackle Zach Tom out of Wake Forest. Although the Falcons made a lot of O-line signings, many of them are short-term, as I said, the 1 to 2 year deals, and they're providing positional competition. Or Zach Tom is a guy I think can easily carve himself out a space on this roster, just for the fact that he can play any position on the offense line. He can play all 5. In fact, at this spot, to me, he's a massive steal. I think he could go as high as early round 2, just for that, positional versatility. Somewhat depending on how the tackles play out on this board, and it does seem like there's going to be a bit of a run on tackles early in the draft. You could see 3 go in the top 10. So, in my opinion, this is a great pick. Even if he's not a guy who necessarily starts this year or next year, he can play so many positions. He's so versatile, he can step in anywhere. Eventually, he will probably find a starting role on this team, but he can be a swing player until then. Now we move on to the 5th round. The Falcons select at 151. At this pick, I'm looking at corner still and safety, and then maybe running back. The options available here are running back Zamir White, defensive tackle John Ridgeway, corner Jalen Watson, running back Jerome Ford, running back Sincere McCormick, tight end Daniel Bellinger, running back Hassan Haskins, tight end Garrett Prince, wide receiver Danny Gray, and interior line Lactitius. I was hoping for Kobe Brown or Josh Jobe to fall here, but that was a little more wishful thinking. I wanted to go corner or safety, but I'm not really liking the value of the guys available comparative to the position of the pick, although we are getting, later in the draft, so it is what it is. Instead, I'm going to shift to running back for this pick. The Falcons have a couple of intriguing pieces in their backfield. Cordero Patterson's getting older, and he can be used at receiver too, ideally, so if you can get a good running back in, you might be able to push him out, because that receiving core is really bad. Even with, us picking George Pickens, there's not a lot beyond that. It's slim pickings, really. And then Mike Davis didn't really pan out all that well when they signed him, but there's a chance that he could still. Zamir White is an interesting choice here, although I don't think he's the best fit for the roster with the previously mentioned backs already taking up what he would probably provide to it. He has a good intangibles, but there is a big injury concern with 2 torn ACLs in college. It turns out with George Pickens, I was wrong. It wasn't 2. He had 1. It was late in the 2020 season, so he lost time in 2020 and 2021. That's a side point. Likewise, I don't think Hassan Haskins complements this group well either. I think it's going to be running back Saquandre White out of South Carolina. I just feel out of the available running backs, he complements this running back room the best, just in terms of being able to see meaningful play time out of who they could pick here. We move on to round 6, pick 190. At this pick, I'm still looking for a corner and a safety. The options available here are corner Chase Lucas, corner Tariq Castro-Fields, safety Verone McKinley III, corner Darian Kendrick, interior line Cade Mays, linebacker Mike Rose, running back Ty Chandler, defensive tackle Thomas Booker, corner Isaac Taylor Stewart, and safety Tariq Carpenter. I really can't put off the defensive backs anymore. The choices here are definitely better fitting of the value though. For me, it's between Tariq Castro-Fields, Verone McKinley III, and Isaac Taylor Stewart. Actually, Fields was one of the people I was looking at in the last pick, but it felt like a reach in that I'd be able to give him the next round or a guy like him if I wanted, and here he is. Taylor Stewart and McKinley are actually kind of polar opposites in the kind of prospects that they are. McKinley doesn't have great physical attributes, but he has really good tape, and Taylor Stewart doesn't have great tape, but he has great physical attributes. Castro-Fields likely won't be a starter at the next level, but he has a variety of skills to help all over as a backup, and he could be, really helpful in that regard. He could even probably take snaps at safety. This really comes up to preference. Do you want a developmental guy who might not pan out, or maybe one or two guys who won't likely be starters but could be impactful backups? And for me here, the pick is corner Tariq Castro-Fields out of Penn State. I think he's a guy that can kind of take snaps wherever in the defensive backfield that you need. He'll help out in zone, and he can play a little bit of press man if he needs to, even though he's not necessarily great at it. We move on to the Falcons' final pick, round 6, pick 213. I didn't realize we had 2 6th-round picks. Not that it makes that much of a difference between a 6th round and a 7th rounder, but the options available here are running back Ty Chandler, corner Isaac Taylor Stewart, receiver Reggie Robertson Jr., corner Kalen Barnes, corner Matt Hankins, running back Tyler Algier, linebacker Michael McFadden, corner Demarion Williams, wide receiver Jalen Naylor, and corner Kyler McMichael. It's actually interesting that Taylor Stewart's still available here. In the last pick, I said, you got to pick between them, but he's still sitting here. And it's actually kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind picking him, just that with Casey Hayward not being a long-term option, he's a veteran, he's going to probably work out his deal, and then who knows if he stays with the team after that. So that would give the option to take a guy like Isaac Taylor Stewart and develop him behind, AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward for a year or two, and then let him start. I kind of wish I did that now. But in the draft itself, I ended up going with Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State. There's injury concerns here, but I was willing to take a flyer, late in the draft on him. As we said, the receiver room on this team is like bare bones. So he's a guy who can, stretch the field, add some unique options to the offense, maybe, get some looks on play action type plays. And even if he doesn't necessarily start, he could be a guy who can just, play as a backup role and, sub in at times and, maybe just make you some plays here and there that, otherwise wouldn't happen. So yeah, that was the 7th round Falcons mock draft. Just looking over it again real quick, we got at 8 in the 1st round, Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon, edge rusher. And our first pick of the 2nd round at 43, we took Pickens, wide receiver out of Georgia. And our second round pick, we took Travis Jones, D-tackle out of UConn. In the 3rd round at 74, we took Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. And 3rd round, we also took tight end Cade Otton, tight end out of Washington. And 4th round, we took at 114 Zach Tom, tackle out of Wake Forest. At 151 in the 5th round, we took Zaquande Wright, running back out of South Carolina. At 190, we took Tariq Castro-Fields, corner out of Penn State. And in our last pick in the 6th round, we took at 213, Jalen Naylor, receiver out of Michigan State. So I think it was a pretty solid draft. We were able to beef up the defensive line. We got probably 2 future starters on that. We got a future starter in the receiving room. We got 2 guys for the receiving room. So, we built that up a little bit. We got a guy with a lot of potential at linebacker, potentially a future 3-down linebacker, some extra depth at tight end on the offensive line, in the running back room, and in the corner room. And, maybe Tariq Castro-Fields even eventually grows into being able to play like a nickel role as well. But yeah, go ahead and let me know what y'all's thoughts on this draft are. What would you do differently with the options that were available? What do you think of mine? Are there any teams you want to see? There's not a lot of time before the draft, but maybe I'll be able to put another 1 or 2 of these out. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate y'all as always. Have a good one. Let's hope this draft is accurate.